Welcome to the Spotlight. I am your host, Ben Beck, and this is year number 7 of this program. You know, over the past 6 or 7 years, this program has morphed and evolved into what it is today, what it's been for the past couple years. You know, it started as a news entertainment show online with my former co-host Adam, where we did segments, and segments turned into having interviews with guests turned into conversations. Eventually Adam left and it became one-on-one with myself. And, you know, that's the way it's been for the past couple years. And here we are, year number 7. We've had approximately almost 200 guests. And I say we because I still include Adam in a lot of that, even though it is just myself now. And, you know, almost 200 guests, and I want to keep that going. So here we are, year number 7. We're going to keep it going. And I couldn't think of anybody better to start this new year with than John Wesley Shipp. You would know John from The Flash back in the 90s, and now currently portraying Jay Garrick in the new CW Flash, as well as Stargirl, which is going to be coming up, which you're going to hear John and I talk a lot about both of these shows. But you would know John, of course, from Dawson's Creek, As the World Turns, Santa Barbara, Guiding Light, so many projects. John and I have a history in that I've had him on another podcast that I had, which he was there. He always was very generous with his time when he came on. So I had to have him on the Spotlight because he's just a wonderful guest. And he helps me kick off this season. We're going to talk a lot. You're going to hear it about The Flash, Stargirl, the current state of the country right now, and how it is for actors to be in this current state when it comes to guidelines and restrictions for shooting, attending conventions, and things like that. So I want you to enjoy this because I really did, and I really hope that you do. I'm rambling because, you know, this is my first time doing this in almost 18 months because of the way things are. But I have a lot planned for season 7, for year 7. I've got a couple guests lined up already. I'm still lining up more, so you're going to see announcements. Huge thanks to John for being so generous with his time, and a huge thanks to his assistant JC. JC always makes it happen. Anytime I reach out to him to have John on a show, JC makes it happen. So special thanks to JC, special thanks to John, and I want you to make sure you gear up and you watch season 2 of Stargirl, which is going to be airing on CW August 10th, which is right around the corner from the time that you're probably listening to this or the time that we heard it. Go back and rewatch The Flash if you want to, which is available on CW Seed as well as places that you can buy it on video on demand. And then, of course, for myself, you can follow this podcast, and I encourage you to do so on social media, on Facebook, The Spotlight NXT, which is where you can also find me on Instagram and Twitter, The Spotlight NXT. And you can follow me personally as well now. I am Ben Beck on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So enough from me. I'm rambling on. I want to get to this conversation, and because it's so good. I couldn't think of a better way to kick off this season. So ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy this conversation with one of my favorite people on the planet, and you will hear that in this conversation, the one and only John Wesley Shipp. Enjoy. My guest this time around is somebody who I've had the great pleasure of speaking with multiple times on a previous podcast. This is the first time, though, he's joining me here on the Spotlight, and I couldn't be more excited. You know him from shows such as Dawson's Creek, the original Flash television series, more recently from his award-winning podcast Powder Burns, or, of course, his return to the DC television universe with his portrayal as the Golden Age Flash, my personal favorite, Jay Garrick. I could not think of anyone better to join me here on my 7th year premiere. Please welcome one of my favorite people, John Wesley Shipp.
Hi, Ben. Thanks. Congratulations on your episode 701.
Yeah.
And yeah, fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I mean, the show was under a little hiatus, as most of the world was under
Absolutely.
kind of a hiatus. I haven't done any episodes of this probably in about probably close to like 18, 19 months because of everything that was going on.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to be back to it. And like I said, I'm so happy that you're the one that I get to kick this off with.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, when I try to think back what happened when, I just take a year and cut it out. It's like everything
Yeah.
seems like something 2 years ago feels like 1 year ago, because
Yeah.
that whole middle section was just obliterated.
And we try not to think about it too much just because it's kind of rough. We're still kind of currently strange times in our country right now because of everything that's going on. But before we jump into everything, obviously we're talking about this, but how have things been for you? You're living, I know you're on the East Coast. I don't want to say specifically where you live in case you don't want it known, but you live in a very populated area of the country where that's been in the news because of everything that's been going on. How have things been for you with everything?
Well, it was the main hardship for me at the beginning was when they closed everything down, including the gyms, because I put on about 20 pounds in about a month and a half.
Yeah.
No, 30. 30 pounds. And then, of course, when we rounded the fall and coming into the winter, and then I got the call from Jeff Johns about maybe doing Stargirl. And I'm thinking, oh my God, they're thinking about putting me back in a suit. I'll never fit. And so I had to do my count my points and rigid eating and all of that. And then I dropped the 30 pounds, was able to take that back off. But right now in the East Coast, we don't know what's happening. Mayor is going to institute what I think is a very good thing, which is a vaccination mandate to go to restaurants, movie theaters, and gyms, which I think is great. And it really depends on where you go. I go to one gym and everybody's wearing their masks, as is recommended. I was at a different gym today, and me and one other guy were wearing masks. So, I don't know what people are reading or not reading, but it's certainly, it seems like we're headed into another, I don't want to say stressful zone, but another where we have to be very aware of ourselves and others and protecting our own health and the health of others.
Yeah, I follow you on social media, such as Facebook and things like that. And I know we share a lot of very similar opinions about everything that's happening right now, both politically and scientifically with everything that's happening. I agree with you completely. Where I am on the East Coast, I'm in Philadelphia, and I know they're talking the same thing about the vaccine mandate to go to restaurants and theaters and gyms. And I'm right there with you. I feel like it's something that needs to be done. And I feel like, if you're somebody who's gotten the vaccine, which I have, I've been fully vaxxed since March, it shouldn't be an issue.
Too.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. Virtual fist bump. There we go. It's something that if you are fully vaxxed, it shouldn't be a concern at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm right there with you. I feel like there's so much misinformation. And I'm glad we're talking about this because to have an outlet where you have listeners, I feel like I have a responsibility to kind of share information. And if there are listeners out there that feel opposite and feel like the vaccine is a hoax or is, not trusted enough, or the COVID's a hoax, whatever, they can have their own opinions as wrong as they may be. But it's very important that, the scientific facts be heard and be followed rather than just all the other misinformation that's out there right now.
Right.
There's so much of it.
There was a talk show on, and they were talking about this situation, and the host was talking about this imaginary constitutional right not to wear masks, and how a mask mandate was somehow, trampling on your constitutional rights. And they said, well, I have a right not to wear a mask. And the guest very smartly said, well, I have a right to get on an airplane knowing that everyone on that airplane is vaccinated against, a pandemic, and that I can feel safe traveling. So that's my right.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, it's tricky times. It's so unfortunate that it was politicized so heavily at the beginning, because it's really not, as Biden has said, it was developed under Trump, it's disseminated under Biden. It's not a partisan issue. It's a matter of your health and the health of your loved ones, and particularly with this new variant, the health of your children.
Yeah.
So I hope everybody, can leave all that mishigas behind and just sort of do the right thing.
I agree. I mean, it's become almost sadly laughable at times to hear, like, you're right. Like, Biden, it was developed under Trump, administered administered under Biden and distributed under Biden. And it makes me laugh that, you trusted it when Trump was developing it, but now that Biden's the one distributing it, now you have a problem with it. And it's not, but again, it's diving too much into politics, and it's just
which brings us back to the wonderful world of pop culture.
Yes,
where we all get to disagree and nobody has to leave the room, and everybody can still have interactions based on our mutual love of this pop cultural art form.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said that better myself. Diving into The Flash, you were talking about how Jeff Johns gave you the call about coming to Stargirl. And, before we get into Stargirl, which is going to be debuting next week at the time that we're recording this.
Yes.
The last time we saw you before Flash just wrapped up its season, we saw you as Earth 90, Barry Allen, making the ultimate sacrifice for, during Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was, I know we had you on the DC Primetime podcast shortly after that. And we spoke about how sad that was. And I got emotional at that moment, but it left a lot of fans who were fans of yours very curious as to, okay, well, when are we going to see John portray Jay again? Because that version of Barry Allen was written off in a swan song. Jay Garrick was on a different Earth, and all the other Earths were destroyed. So now where does that leave us? I couldn't have been more excited to see you pop up in that Flash 2-part finale.
Absolutely. With my speed back.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I gotta tell you, when they gave me that cane in episode 6, that worried me. I was like, okay, we know he's getting older. We know he's not the fastest Flash, but let's not cripple him.
Yeah, let's not take away everything about him.
So when I found out he's coming back, he has his speed back, and there's going to be an interesting interaction set up for season 8 between him and Bart, I was like, count me in. Because, I was hoping for a mentor protege relationship with Wally, and that didn't happen. They wrote a different direction. Mm-hmm. And Wally was being wrongly instructed by Tom Cavanaugh's character instead of. So I'm hoping to get to play. And there's been talk of my being able to mentor Bart a little bit, since they're laying in that we're very much alike, that Jay was very impulsive at the beginning and had to work through his impulses and become wiser, that you don't all the time go out on the first impulse, that you have to sometime take your hats off, and let a situation play out. So those two things were very attractive to me coming back.
Yeah, I mean, it was so much fun seeing your return because, like you said, we saw Jay Garrick come back. He's got his speed back. But in addition to that, he also kind of got a little bit of a boost at during that finale as well from Michelle Harrison's version of the Speed Force. So, who I've had Michelle on the podcast before too, and she's so delightful. I love when I get to talk to her, and seeing you or seeing her portray, Jay Garrick's wife on the show is just as much fun to watch as well. But we saw Jay Garrick return with his speed, in addition to XS coming back, and like you mentioned, the introduction of Bart Allen, which was just a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's a great. It's going to be a great storyline to pursue, and we've certainly set it up. Jordan Fisher beautifully laid in this feeling that there was a deep bond between him and who he calls Uncle Jay, and that the reason he's come back all these years is because in the future, Jay, I don't want to give everything away, but he comes back to undo something tragic that happens in the future because of this bond that he feels for Jay, based on a lived history that Jay Garrick hasn't experienced yet, which is such an interesting contrast. Because here's this kid, and I was thinking, okay, it's going to be up to him to sell this closeness, because my Jay Garrick hasn't lived it yet. I don't know that it's there. And when he's telling his sister about Uncle Jay and all of this and getting emotional, and then when he sees Jay for the first time, it's like Jay's a little confused by it. Okay, all right. Oh yeah, I'm not giving anything away. It's already been on the air.
Yeah, it's already aired.
He says like, "Oh, Uncle. Okay, well that's new. It's I like it, And he's getting this intense energy off this kid, which feels great, but he doesn't really know why yet. But I thought Jordan sold that so beautifully. I believed every word of his scene with Nora. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then the scene with me where I'm telling him, give him the iconic line, "It's time to take our hats off."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things I liked, in addition to, like I said, Excess returning, your character returning, and the introduction of Bart as Impulse. There were those subtle hints up until before they even revealed his name as Impulse, was because in the conversations they were having, calling him impulsive, acting on his impulses. And every time I heard that word, I just chuckled. I'm like, well, that's his name. Like, I totally get where they're laying the groundwork for him to be this character.
Yeah.
And that's actually a dynamic I didn't even really think of until you just brought it up, in the fact that it was actually Jordan that had to do a lot of the heavy lifting in those scenes, because he was the one that had to make the relationship believable, because your version didn't know what it was yet at that point.
Yeah. And if anything, I didn't realize that we had that relationship. So I love that the writers wrote in when I'm telling him not to go running out there, that, we may not know why, but if Barry says, stay here no matter what, he has a reason. Mm-hmm. And I love that they threw in, look, we just met. All right. You got no reason to listen to me, but we both know Barry, and if he tells us to stay seated, it's time to take our hats off. I thought, well, that's great, because it reinforces the fact that Jay hasn't lived it yet, and that Bart is coming from a lived history that Jay hasn't experienced. And I love playing with those constructs.
Yeah, and playing on that connection, the commonality of the connection with Barry, rather, using that as, like you said, as that connection between the two. You said, Jay addressing the Bart, you may not know me, but we know Barry. Right. Using that commonality to connect with a character he just met at the same time.
And it's interesting to set up, if they choose to pursue it, and if Jordan's available, if everything works out, set it up that maybe, sometimes we have a conflict with our own dads, but we can find an uncle or a friend or a relative mentor figure that maybe we're more alike, which is what they're laying in, that Jay and Bart are much more alike. So sometimes you might have a conflict with your own dad. Mm-hmm. You would go to your mentor figure who you think maybe understands you a little bit better. Well, I hope there's a payoff to that. We'll see in season 8.
Yeah, I do as well. I know, post Crisis, I felt like Crisis on Infinite Earths was something that, we were really anticipating. And I know the way that 4-part finale wrapped up felt like such great closure for a lot of these shows, to the point where I will personally admit there's actually a couple shows I stopped watching after Crisis because I felt such a sense of closure. I kind of didn't want to ruin that sense. But Flash is the one I continued with after Crisis, just because I love the character so much, and I love the ensemble cast that comes along with it. Even though we got the saddening news of Carlos Valdez leaving this season.
Yes.
Tom Cavanaugh, I believe, said he was leaving this season as well, but we're still getting additional characters. Like you said, Jordan Fisher, seeing your return. So the ensemble is still there, even without some of those characters. But I continue to watch The Flash, even post-Crisis, because I love the show as much as you do. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they follow through with in season 8. I know you can't reveal too much, but has there been talks of Jay coming back for next season?
Yes, in fact, okay. I think they've already announced that.
Okay.
That we'll be back. I hope they have, but if not, surprise.
Yeah. Exclusive.
But, yeah. Yeah, they've already when Eric Wallace, our wonderful producer, executive producer, was spinning out these stories for my return in episode 17 and 18 of season 7, which we just aired. He was spinning out this whole circumstance with a payoff looking forward in season 8. So I know that that's the plan. Anything can change at any time for a variety of reasons. But I'm looking forward to the fact that in its initial original pitching it to me, it's there.
Okay. I can tell you too, there was almost a sense of comfort in hearing Bart call you Uncle Jay.
Oh yeah.
Because one, it connected your character more to the family. But at the same time, as a fan and somebody who loves seeing you appear on the show, it kind of was almost a sense of comfort to know that Jay's going to be around for a long time. So there's always opportunities for John to reappear in the series as it goes forward.
Yes.
So,
and I think it's interesting also. Think of the dynamic. Of course, you don't want to get too heavy. It's at its root, it's an action adventure comic book. It's a ride at the amusement park. One thing Flash has been able to do, though, is balance that with the heart-to-heart moments and the emotional content. And I think at its best, that's one thing that Flash does really well. But you think about the possibility of a situation in which Jay Garrick, who looks just like Barry's dad, is closer in some instances to Barry's son than Barry is. That there's a connection between the two of them that maybe even Jay and Barry don't have. And how does that play? What does that bring up for the different characters? But it's going to be fun. Yeah, you talked about Michelle Harrison. I'm scared of her. I'm scared of her now. I was like, someone said, "Oh no," they saw a picture of us together. They were like, and she was dressed as Speed Force. They said, "Be careful around her. Watch out for her."
We had this is going back up a couple years, but I moderated a panel with Michelle, for the life of me, I can't remember the actor who played Eobard Thawne before Tom Cavanaugh did.
Oh yeah. Of course, of course. Now that you ask me,
I know now. I can't. It's blanking my head.
You ask me,
But I had a fun a panel with them at a convention in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and then we followed through with an interview. We actually interviewed her at her table a little bit later on, and her panel became fun because as we were interviewing her, Brett Dalton from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. happened to crash the panel. Matt Lesher. Yep. Yeah, so it became this fun instance where, as we were interviewing Michelle, Brett Dalton crashed it, and then Matt Lesher crashed it, and it just it was so much fun. But going back to the what you were talking about that play on how Jay looks like Barry's dad.
We sometimes forget that, the further we get away from it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I really enjoy how the show plays on that too, because there's even a moment with you looking at Nora, the Speed Force version of Nora, and playing into that that she looks like your wife from
That's
your
right. You look like someone very close to me. Of course, it was important for me not to be, because the way it was written, you would almost think Jay was, you look like, hello, ma'am. I was thrown off. But, I was like, now we're clear that Jay knows all about the Speed Force, and Jay knows that the Speed Force takes different forms. So he's not surprised at this as much as he is wondering what the Speed Force is up to by assuming the shape of his wife, if there's any significance to that, So that colored the way that line was delivered.
I mean, and he's somebody as well, too, that's seen enough that if he sees somebody who happens to look like his wife, it's not too jarring, like that he has to step back and be like, okay, what is going on here? He kind of accepts it, even though it's not explained as in like, okay, yeah, I know this. There's something about this that. And
he has to, and he knows, I think it's important. He knows the Speed Force because he's not the fastest speedster anymore. Although, as you said, he gets a jolt from the Speed Force in that scene. But if he has something to offer, it's his wisdom, it's his experience. He that's what he would bring to the team, in the role of a mentor, as a partner. And that's another thing I enjoyed so much about 717, 718. It was the most integrated and central to the action that I've felt as Jay Garrick since Enter Flash Time in season 4.
Which is still such an amazing episode. Like, it's still one of my favorite episodes.
Yes.
Of that show. I know one thing I'd be curious to see if they
put the hat Sterling Gates.
Yeah. I think one of the things I would like to see them kind of explore a little bit into season 8. I don't know if this is something they've already talked to you about, or maybe something you might even suggest at some point, is, we know there are some characters who know about Crisis and everything that happened, but for the most part, many other people have no idea, because when the Earths were recreated, they have no recollection of Crisis. I'd be curious to see if Jay is somebody who knows, or is somebody who's eventually told. What his take on it would be.
That's interesting. That's very interesting.
Because it's not something that's been revealed yet at this point, because it wasn't essential to the story for 17 and 18. But right. I'd be curious to see if that's something that would come up in the future.
Suddenly his town is on Earth Prime. Yeah. What's the name of that city? I can't remember it. What's the name of their city where Joan and Jay live? Because Carlos at some point says, I went over to so-and-so city, which lets everybody know that Jay and Joan have come to Earth Prime. But I can't think of the name of the city. Oh, well. Yeah,
I can't remember it. You'd think you'd think as much of as much as I love this series and the characters, I would remember that, but you can't remember every piece of information.
A lot of listeners out there are screaming, "It's so and so, you idiot!"
Yeah, that's all right. I'll get emails and messages from Facebook. It's fine. I'll apologize for both of us when they come through.
Thank you.
We talked about at the top of the podcast too. You're going to be coming over to. They made the announcement recently that Jay Garrick is coming to Stargirl, and you're going to be portraying Jay Garrick. I know there's not too much you can talk about because of the fact that it hasn't aired yet. They like to keep a lot of this as a surprise to the listeners. But yes. I can tell you right now, I'm a fan of Stargirl. I watched season 1. I'm excited for season 2. When they introduced a lot of these Golden Age characters in the first season of Stargirl, and Jay Garrick was mentioned, I kind of got a little excited because I was like, well, I hope it's John. Like, I hope if they ever bring Jay into this world, in this universe, because it is a different Earth. It is Earth 2. I'd be interested to see if they bring John in to portray the character. And then we got the announcement that indeed that's what's happening.
Yeah, I wondered when they mentioned Jay Garrick and then they showed the mural and there's all the superheroes and Jay just happens to be sort of in the crease in the mural and his face is blurred.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't want to, I don't want to infer too much from this about this, but I wonder what they're up to. And then I actually got the call first from Eric Wallace. Apparently he had a conversation with Jeff, who of course I've felt very close to since the very first episode of the CW Flash. He was there for my return. He was the first member of the new team for the new Flash that I met in New York in February before I went to shoot the pilot. So I felt very close to him. So Eric said, I just had a conversation with Greg and Jeff, and he said, you think John would be interested? And I'm like, why didn't he call me? It's like, we're friends. I said, and of course I would be interested. I think that would be a great thing to do. And then Jeff called me. And I said, hey, man, why didn't you pick up the phone and call me? I guess
call me yourself.
They also had to, I can't. I was about to say something I probably shouldn't say that they had to clear. So I'm not going to say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it'd be, because in season 1, it's implied that version of Jay Garrick was killed in that battle that they mentioned, in showing that, but just like in any kind of television show like this, unless you see the death on screen, it never actually happened. Yeah. So, there's the implications that Jay Garrick could still be alive. So I know you can't say much, so you obviously don't answer me, but I'm very curious to see which version of Jay Garrick are we getting? Are we getting the Earth 2 version? Are we getting the Earth Prime version crossing over somehow? I'm really excited to see where this happens. To see what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. I'll tell you, when I got that script, I thought, wow, it was not only, I don't want to say it was dark because, it's Stargirl, it's built around this very wonderful teenage, Breck and teenager. But there were dark elements about it. And there was a depth and a weight to it that I thought, wow, this is more than I really expected it to be. And although knowing Jeff Johns, I knew it would be good. That's why I agreed before I ever read the first word. But then I got it. I was like, forget my scenes. I'm going, wow, I'm reading the whole thing and I'm totally absorbed. And I'm so excited for people to tune in starting August 10th. They've announced I'll be in the 9th episode, but don't wait for me. Yeah. Jump in August 10th, and let's welcome Stargirl exclusively to the CW.
Yeah, I'm really excited for season 2. I really enjoyed season 1. You mentioned the darkness that you read in just that particular episode. I think that's one of the things that kind of really drew me to that first season, because even in the first season, there are a little darker elements to that story. And I think that kind of is what drew me in a little bit, is because they have that little bit of darkness involved in it.
Yeah. And I think I think Luke Wilson and Jeff have done a wonderful thing. And I talked to Luke a little bit about this. I was like, I hope you enjoy playing this part because you're so good at it. And I said, and there's not another character exactly like what you two are creating, who is simultaneously. And it's one reason, as I was differentiating my relationship with the different members of the Justice Society, I was like, okay, what is Jay's relationship to Stripesy? What is his relationship to Pat? How does he feel about Pat? And Luke and Jeff have created this wonderful combination of being a superhero and yet having this deep humility, almost veering into personal insecurity and self-doubt about himself. And there's such a vulnerability that they have created in this superhero that I said, there's no other character, in superhero entertainment on screen or TV that I can really say, yeah, that's that character. No, I said, you're creating something that I think is unique unto itself.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things I really enjoy about Stargirl, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it's handled, when your character finally comes in, is, we've gotten in the other CW shows, like The Flash and Arrow, we've kind of gotten new, updated versions of these characters that we've already had before. We've got an updated version of The Flash, we had an updated version of Green Arrow, updated Superman, and so on. But Stargirl seems to be the one show that's kind of passing the baton. They've introduced they showed that these classic Justice Society characters already existed. And now we're not getting updated versions of those characters. We're getting new people, new characters that are taking up the mantle of those characters instead.
Yes, you're exactly right. And I love the scenes between Luke and Breck where he's saying, you got to balance out your life here. You have this, but you need to go to school. You need to get good grades. You need to have a career. And she says, yeah, a career as a superhero. It's all right.
Yeah, that dynamic between Breck and Luke is so great too. I mean, you take what's already a stressful situation, as in a stepfather and stepdaughter situation, yes, where there's already resentment there, and now you're throwing in this entirely new dynamic of superheroics and superpowers,
in which he's trying to, if anything, put the brakes a little bit on what she can do and give it time to develop. That is, you're right. It's already a built-in kind of tension there.
And now you're just piling on top of it, and it's it just makes for such an interesting viewing. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you said episode 9 too, because that was actually going to be one of my questions: is when can we expect to see you?
Yeah.
Uh, it's kind of a shame we have to wait 9 weeks, but you're right. I mean, the rest of the show leading up to those 9 weeks are going to be just
Yes.
as good. So
It's going to be fantastic. It's like people who've never watched Stargirl. I say the same thing to them now that I've been a part of it and I've been on the set and I see it's got that new show crackle. Everybody shows up with their A game because everybody really wants to work. That new show feeling, energy, vibe, and I say, listen, I'll say the same thing I did for The Flash when people were unsure before the CW Flash premiere. They were like, well, I don't know about this. It's to this, it's to that. He's to this, he's to that. I said, look, just do me a favor. You like my version. I'm just going to ask you one thing. Watch the first episode. Just watch it and then make your decision. I've had so many people in the case of The Flash tell me, you were so right. Because I was on the fence about this new version of The Flash, but then I watched the pilot episode and I was so drawn in to the lives of these people, not only the superheroics, but the lives of these people, that my wife or my girlfriend or somebody who isn't even a comic book fan who watched it with me is now also drawn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you bring up that as well, because oddly enough, I mean, I'm in my early 40s now, but I still enjoy spending time with my mother every chance I get. So once a week, I spend, time with my mother and have dinner. And one of the things that we always do every time she comes over and we have dinner is we watch that week's episode of The Flash.
God, I love that. I just love that. I love the legacy on so many levels because there's a legacy clearly in the comics that these group of writers and producers who are lifelong comic fans are honoring, and they love revealing and exploring the legacy. And then the audience has its own legacy. Because I've had so many people come up to me and said, I used to watch your show in the 90s with my dad, or in one case in Ecuador with a brother who died. And then she started weeping in my arms. And now I'm watching the new Flash with my child. And you're the thread that runs through that tapestry. So the audience has its own legacy going,
Yeah. 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 So I enjoy that connection. I've gotten my mother into, it's funny, like I'm the one that got her into watching them. So like I said, when she comes over, we watch The Flash and we watch Superman and Lois, which is another amazing show
so
right
good,
now.
Isn't it?
I think it's towards the top along with The Flash of my favorite of the CW shows right now.
Yeah.
It's so beautifully done. Tyler is just knocking it out of the park as Superman and Clark. He's so good. And
well, we knew from the days of Teen Wolf that he was going to be a star.
Yeah. Well, see, I knew, funny enough, I knew Tyler. I didn't know him at the time, but I go back. I'm one of those people that when I rewatch movies, I always get a kick out of seeing people in earlier movies before they even became known or anything. And Tyler was in one of my favorite Tom Hanks movies, which is Road to Perdition. He's Tom Hanks' son in Road to Perdition. So it's always fun going back and seeing that kind of thing too. But yeah, you're right. The legacy is always there. I hope one day, I mean, again, I'm in my early 40s. I hope to have kids one day, and I'll sit down on the couch and watch these shows even long after the series have ended. I'll go back and revisit these shows, and I'm sure in another 10 to 20 years, if not sooner, there'll be another version updated of these characters, and they'll live on. They'll continue to live on.
It's like opera. It keeps going with different cast members.
Yeah, same thing with Broadway, and they just replace the cast and keep the show going. The show never changes.
You have a whole new experience. That's why when people said, does it feel familiar coming back to The Flash? How does it feel coming back? Does it feel familiar? And I said, I always say, I may even said on your show before, it feels like in the sense that you're coming up to a house that looks very familiar, and then you open the door and everything is different. The staircase is in a different place. The fireplace is over here. It's all different furniture, different wallpaper. It's a whole discovery of what this new telling is.
Yeah.
When I first heard that Henry Allen was wrongfully convicted of killing his wife in front of a 10-year-old Barry, that blew my mind, that Jeff Johns had kind of blown up the Allen family in that way. And that's when I became interested in becoming a part of the new show, because I was like, hell, that's a character I would want to play, even if I'd never been the Flash. It's just a great set of circumstances to play.
And even like you mentioned too, about telling people that you met, like who were unsure about the Flash when it first started, of give it one episode. Like, if I heard from you at that time, if I was a fan of that 90s Flash that you were a part of, and John Wesley Shipp is telling me give this new Flash a go, I don't need any more validation than that. Like, that's enough for me to be like, okay, done. If he's on board and he's a part of it, there's no reason for me not to trust that it's going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, it's like Mark Hamill, even when they asked him to come back, he said, I figured I would be coming back as some associate of Henry Allen. When they said they wanted me to be the trickster, I was like, what?
I still want to see an episode with the two of you kind of like battling it out again.
I know that would be so much fun, but he trusted, because he knows these guys. He knew Berlanti Productions and Jeff Johns at the time, Andrew Kreisberg and the whole team. And he trusted that what they would come up with would be something he would want to play. And they did.
Yeah. So it's been so great watching. And I love that the legacy continues on. And now with your character moving into Stargirl or making appearances in the Stargirl, I'm like, I don't care if it's a different Jay, if it's the same Jay, I'm on board. Doesn't matter. I'm here for it. This being the premiere of my 7th year, I haven't done any of these for about 18 months because of everything that's been going on. And I know you're back to shooting. You shot The Flash with all these new restrictions and guidelines. You did the same thing again with Stargirl. How has that been? Like, how has that changed the dynamic of when you were on set, on The Flash or other projects before COVID, now post-pandemic? How has that changed?
Through a year where everything was wiped off the board. We were supposed to do another Hallmark movie, Ruby Herring Mysteries, that got wiped off. I had 8 personal appearances all over the place. They got wiped off the board. I was supposed to do a play. I was workshopping another play.
I remember that too. I remember you telling me about that.
It just all got pushed aside. And my first time back in the saddle was actually Stargirl, because we shot that in February.
Okay.
And so, it was it was a whole different experience when I went to Vancouver, because the COVID protocols were so strict. They were very strict and observant, and had someone on set and a minimum amount of quarantine, but had to be tested 2-3 times a week, and you have to wear your mask when you're not actually shooting. But man, when I got to Canada, it's like they meet you at the plane. It's like they whisk you off to a government hotel for 3 days while they're getting the results of the tests that they take. And then you have to go isolate. I don't mean quarantine. I mean isolate. They drop your food at the door.
Yeah, I've seen other people talk about that too.
For an additional 11 days.
Jeez.
So for 14 days, I was in isolation in Vancouver. I was up there for 6 weeks before we started to shoot. So that was very challenging. I think at one time Canada had made it so that if you have your vaccination, the travel is a bit easier, but I don't know going into the Delta variant what that's going to be like. Now, I know I'm supposed to go to Texas. I'm not supposed to. I am going. I've decided. I've talked to their COVID protocol person and safety measures and capacity limits, and I'm going to Texas to Hill Country Comic-Con in New Braunfels, Texas, next weekend. I'll be there August 14th and 15th.
Okay.
But of course, being Texas, a lot of the protocols are suggestions.
Yeah, they're not mandates.
So,
they're you can do this if you want to, kind of.
And of course, what ends up happening is all the conscientious people who probably are fine are going to follow the suggestions, and all the, it's all the people most in danger and, are not. But, a lot of it the responsibility falls on me, because I know I did a convention, my first personal appearance back in June in West Virginia. And, you get so swept up in the moment. And I'm a very hands-on person. I don't stay behind my table. The Shipps are very, hand on shoulder. Come on, let's take a photo op.
Mm-hmm.
If they want a hug, I'm a hugger. It's like, but I'm going to really have to be more. And I got swept up in West Virginia because I figured, hey, I'm vaccinated. I'm bulletproof. Now we know there are, as with any virus and any vaccine, there are breakthrough, although it's very rare compared to if you're not vaccinated. So you're so much safer. As even Lindsey Graham said, he said, I'm so glad I got vaccinated, because if I hadn't, my symptoms right now would be so much worse.
Yeah.
In Texas now, which is, they're struggling, Florida and Texas have a third of the new cases in the surge. So I've got to be mindful to stay behind my table, to meet people, but not, throw myself into the crowd, not jump off the stage during my Q&A and be lifted.
Yeah. Crowd surfing through your autograph line and everything else. I totally get what you're saying though, too, because I too have started returning to events. I actually got hired as the programming director for an event that's happening down in Atlanta in September next month. And, we're kind of getting ahead of the curve a little bit, as we actually just instituted. We had a meeting about it on yesterday, as a matter of fact, Wednesday morning. And we just instituted yesterday the new Delta variant policies, in that masks have to be worn on the con floor now. If you did not purchase an autograph or a photo op, you are not to be in the line. We have a strict no touch policy now, so there's no hugs or anything like that. Which is a shame, because that's something that a lot of people,
it is a shame, because breaking through that fourth wall is one of the things that's been, for me, such a yummy experience about personal appearances, that suddenly you get to reach out and touch someone, in the words of the song, reach out and touch somebody's hand, make this world a better place if you can, so in West Virginia, I was like, that lasted for about half an hour. And then I was going around the table. We were taking our masks off for selfies. They're not doing photo ops. Selfies are up to us if we do them at the table or not. But I thought, I know a way that the convention could do photo ops specifically with the flash and be safe for everybody and have it work. The flash of two worlds.
Oh, that's great. That pose between the two of you. You're not touching.
And we have a cardboard partition with bricks drawn on it. And we're on opposite side and have a sign that says the flash of two worlds.
Oh, that's genius.
So I made that recommendation. If they'll decide to do it or not, we'll see.
Yeah. Oh, see, I would. And as somebody who's such a fan of not just the flash, but of yours, that would be a killer photo op. Like, I don't see why somebody would not do that.
And we're all, in our poses. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I would even, if I knew ahead of time that was going to be the pose, I have the kettle helmet. I would bring the kettle helmet with me.
Absolutely.
To have one of us wear it and just sit there in that pose. And that would be great.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, it's such an interesting world, because like I said, like it's, you've returned to cons. I've returned to events. I don't, as much as this surge is happening, I don't foresee another lockdown across the country. So events are going to continue to happen. These vaccine mandates are going to roll out, hopefully, more and more across the country, so that we can get this a little bit more under control.
That's the key.
And then maybe by next year, we can be back to hugging the people that we want to hug. Because you're right, breaking that fourth wall, that tactile connection.
Thank you.
Is what really makes that, because when you see somebody on television all the time and then you get the opportunity to meet them, you're still just looking at them if you don't get to touch them.
Exactly.
Shake a hand, fist bump, do something.
Exactly. I remember when I was on daytime TV in the early 80s, along with Julianne Moore and Kevin Bacon, and all these great actors. People, you're in their living rooms 3 to 5 times a week. And people would, when they would recognize me, they were like, what are you doing out here? What are you doing outside the box? Get back in the box.
Yeah, we mentioned earlier that you live in a very metropolitan city. Do you get recognized a lot when you walk around?
Yes, I did this morning when I was on my way to the subway. Yeah,
Did you really?
It kind of comes in waves, and I don't know if it's something about my energy, but when I'm really feeling really good and my aura or my energy is out, I get recognized a lot. If I'm a little bit sleepy or drawn in, but then I get people who write me on social media. God, I saw you on the subway, and I just didn't want to bother you or say hi, but I said next time say hi.
Yeah,
it costs nobody nothing, to wave or a tip of the hat or.
Yeah, and you've always been great with interacting with fans, both in public that I've seen you at conventions and online. I mean, I remember, I don't know if you remember this or not, but a couple weeks ago, we're not friends on Facebook, but I follow you on Facebook, and I posted a video of that somebody edited into all the 90s versions of the characters.
Yeah. They edited them all together.
As the Justice League, yeah. And I shared that on your timeline, and you liked it, and I was like, that's great. He saw it. I know he saw it. That works.
Yeah. I want people to know that I do check in. I don't always respond, or sometimes I'll respond. I'll take the shortcut. The lazy man's out. I'll respond with an emoji or a lightning bolt and a heart or thank you. But I want people to know that I see them because they are gracious enough and are supportive enough to see me, that I feel that it's the least that I can try to offer back as much as I can.
Yeah. Just a quick answer. I know when I post on social media, the past times I've had you on, it's always interesting to see like what people recognize you as. Like, I know some people recognize you as the 90s Flash, others the new ones. I had a bunch of people say that he's from Dawson's Creek. What do you find if you get recognized on the street, people recognize you more for?
I think since it's so current, it's mostly the Flash now.
Okay.
But I get astounded people that will go, and this happened last week when I was on like the corner of, on my way to the gym, the corner of Broadway and 54th. And this guy stopped and he went, John Wesley Shipp, the Flash. He was like, wow. And we're talking. And then this older guy comes by and goes, Kelly Nelson, Guiding Light. I go, well, that was 1980. I wouldn't recognize me from that, But I used to be able a little bit closer to the time when I did Teen Wolf and was that Psycho Dad. I could tell what people were fans of by the way they approached me. If they approached me like, that was the Flash. If they approached me like said, oh, that was Dawson's Creek. And if they were like,
a little skeptical to approach.
I'm like, Teen Wolf.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I'm sure you could just look at somebody and know where they recognize you from at that point. So, I know we're getting close to the end, but something I'm personally curious about. I was such a fan of Powder Burns. I mentioned you won a ton of awards for Powder Burns. It was such a great Western story, scripted podcast. Any ideas for possibly bringing it back for more story or developing it into something different?
I would love that. We're all involved, including the creator, David Gregory, who was a star on One Life to Live. In fact, I played his father, the evil psycho dad, Eddie Ford, on One Life to Live in 2010, 2012. And he wrote it. It was his concept. He wrote it, produced it, and also played my deputy in the series. And yes, you're right. We won Voice Arts Awards. We won Society of Vocal Arts and Sciences Award at Lincoln Center. And it was a great experience, have Ed Asner come in and do our last episode and to work with Robert Vaughn on an episode before his death. What a treat. And but David had written the play about the lifelong friendship of Henry Fonda and Jimmy Stewart, despite vast political differences and romantic rivalries. We were workshopped that in New Orleans. We had Broadway producers attached, and then everything fell apart. So I know he's got another project which is circling, which is making the route in. So it all depends on what he has the creative energy to do. Because I've learned from experience, anytime David Gregory has a project or wants me to be involved in something, I will do it. But I think that's a fun thing. What do we do? Episodes? Got a lot of feedback on this.
Yeah, I recommended that to so many people when that was out, because I knew that it was coming. I knew we had you one time on the DC Primetime podcast right before Powder Burns was debuting, and then I remember listening to it, and I couldn't wait for the next episode to come out. And and then I remember when we had you on for the final episode of DC Primetime, you did mention the play between Henry Fonda and Jenry Stewart and that dynamic. And I do know you were workshopping that at the time. So hopefully that comes back around, because that would be something I'd be interested in going to see.
I hope so. I had done, interestingly enough, since the character was played by Henry Fonda, who I was playing in Hank and Jim Build a Plane. I had done 12 Angry Men at the Judson Theater in Pinehurst, North Carolina. And it was such a wonderful, exhilarating experience. In one instance, they had the Moorhead Scholarship Program had taken 5 area high schools, bought them the play. They studied it in context of the Bill of Rights, so they knew what issue we were dealing with at what point of the play and what the conversation was centering on, what constitutional right. And man, we had like 600 to 800 high school students at one performance, and they were one of our absolute best audiences. Man, they were hanging on every word. They knew at every turn the context that the play was written in and what we were saying as performers. And at the end of that play, the roof blew off the theater, practically from the response. So I know that that the artistic director has expressed interest this winter. Again, we'll see what happens with the theater protocols, but I'm very hopeful. People resist like a vaccination passport, but that's our way to open up and get back together again.
Yeah.
If everyone can do proof of vaccinations and we can be reasonably comfortable that we'll be reasonably safe, then the faster things will open up and we'll all get back to normal.
I'll be honest with you. I have it's sitting right over here. It's hanging. I have a whole collection of lanyards from when I did conventions, like all the badges and everything.
Oh yeah.
I have easily like 50 badges hanging over here from all the events I've done. And I have hanging with it is my vaccination card in a laminate on a lanyard.
I hear
because I'm one of those people that I'm like, well, you know what? If I have to present it, fine. I'm more than happy.
What a great idea. What a great idea. I used to have about 40 or 50 of those lanyards. I've got to look and see if I finally box them up or if I still have them accessible. What a great idea. Slip it in a lanyard. Then you have your card right there.
Yep. I have it in a laminate that's perfectly sized for that. And it's on a lanyard. So when I travel to Atlanta in September, I'll have it with me. So if by the time I'm in Atlanta, if Atlanta has a vaccine mandate, which hopefully they will, or even to travel next month, it's required, I'm prepared. And there you go. I'm good to go.
Good deal.
Any projects besides your appearance in, at the con in Texas, any other projects coming up we can go along with Stargirl?
I have, it's like I have next season of Flash to look forward to. I have, I told Jeff Johns, I so enjoyed working on that show. It was like, write me an arc, man. I'll come back. Luke Wilson was like, see you next time. I was like, from your mouth to God's ears. So we'll see how that goes. But lined up some personal appearances. Of course, the November personal appearances are very iffy at this point. Although I heard that even with the Delta, the last I read, London's case count was going down. They expected it to go up. But I have London Comic-Con. I have Toulouse, France. I'm supposed to go to in November. I'm going to Texas next month. I'm going to Morgantown. And that's Mountain Country Comic-Con with Michelle in September.
Okay.
In September. So those are the things I have to look forward to right now.
Hopefully they put the two of you on stage together for a panel, because I'm sure that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. We did that in Denver. And it was crazy.
Yeah.
We were like acting out scenes. I was lying on the floor, like recreating the moment of Laura's death, you know.
Well, it's interestingly enough, I mean, when I mentioned earlier with, you know, that interview we did with Michelle in Harrisburg with Matt Lesher and Brett Dalton that crashed it, the reason why Brett had crashed was because I had moderated a panel with Matt and Michelle on one time on Saturday, and then because I was the moderator for the entire weekend, so every panel I was the house moderator.
That kept you busy.
Oh yeah, and then I moderated another panel later with Brett Dalton and Max Hernandez from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And Michelle and Brett's tables happened to be next to each other, and I remember like they started a conversation about whose panel was better, like whose audiences were better. And I remember on Sunday walking up a staircase with the con director and like him telling me, he's like, Michelle and Brett were having like friendly debate over whose panel was better, like Michelle's or Brett's. And I was like, yeah, I heard that yesterday. He's like, no, it's still going. He's like, they're still doing it today.
My panel is better than yours.
Yeah, and that's what like they kept outdoing each other. Like Brett at one point told Michelle, he's like, yeah, well, that's great that the audience gave you a standing ovation, but he brought me out and I landed in a chopper. Like they just kept one-upping each other, and it was so much fun to hear it and be a part of that interaction. It was so great.
Oh yeah.
So, John, I can't thank you enough. You're always so generous with your time.
Thank you, Ben. It's always good to talk to you because I don't feel like I'm being interviewed. I just feel like we're hanging out and talking about something that we're both very much involved with and very much love.
Yeah. And that's always my point is I never call these interviews. I call them conversations because that's what I like them to be.
Yes.
Yeah. Where can people find you online if they want to follow you? Like if you're on Instagram or, you know,
if you don't want to be bothered with my opinions about life and things and politics and whatever subject pops into my wee little head, follow me on Instagram.
Okay.
Because I have one respite where people can go, where it's just some personal stuff, family stuff, any of my conventions, pictures from conventions, pictures from the set. That's my Instagram account. And the handle there is John Wesley Shipp Jr. because there was already a John Wesley Shipp, but I'm verified.
Who took that name? Seriously.
There was a high school football player from Refugio, Texas, and I began getting his Google alerts. And he was a linebacker in high school. And I began, John Wesley Shipp makes amazing, play in finals at state, and I'm like, what? Who is this guy? So maybe him, I don't know. But he was born, interestingly enough, right around the time I was doing Guiding Light. So I didn't know if that had an impact on his family or not. But yeah, so that's a place. Facebook, I get into it a little more. And of course, because it's the nature of the beast, Twitter, I engage both professionally and personally and engage in conversations and post things that I personally, others may disagree, but I personally feel are important to be amplified. But if you don't want any of that, to be bothered with any of that, and then follow me on Instagram.
Okay. So, John, again, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks so much. And have a great season 7.
I hope to do that. Everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you as always for being a part of this great audience. I'm so excited to jump into my 7th year of doing this. But until next time, we'll see you guys in the next spotlight. Take care.